afternoon, and welcome to the webinar. Welcome to DrugFreeAZKids.org's November webinar, Staying Safe and Healthy This Holiday Season. I'm Kim Obert. I'll be your host for the webinar. I'm Program Manager for DrugFreeAZ.org, but most importantly, I'm a mother and a grandmother. I'm also a certified workshop trainer in active parenting series, active parenting step families, cooperative divorce, co-parenting, and guiding good choices. If you would like more information about any of these workshops and when they're available in your area, please visit our website at DrugFreeAZ.org, or you can send me an email at kim.obert@DrugFreeAZ.org. We have a lot to cover today in 30 minutes, so let's just jump right in. We're going to talk about alcohol, our teens and young adults, holidays and celebrations, and how those two are interconnected. We're going to talk about being jolly and avoiding the folly this season. We'll address prevention talks and while they work. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email them to kimobert@drugfreeaz.org. So first off, let's start with what's the big deal? Why are we covering this topic today? What's the big deal about celebrating? And what's the big deal about kids and alcohol? When it comes to our kids and alcohol, there's a number of reasons that we need to be extra vigilant during these holidays. Let's start with our own attitudes about alcohol, because our kids take their cues from us about alcohol. Okay? They need to know how we feel about alcohol and drugs, and that requires conversations with our kids. For example, think about how you and your family typically celebrate. Does every celebration include alcohol? And what message does that send to kids? How will they choose to celebrate their major milestones when they get into the college that they want, or if they ace a test, or if perhaps they, make the lead role in a play? Whatever they see as an accomplishment, how are they going to choose to celebrate? On the other side, how are they going to learn to cope with stress? If they see us always reaching for a glass of wine and making statements like, oh my gosh, today was just the worst day ever, I need some wine, they'll take their cues from that as how to relieve stress. So we need to think about our own attitudes about alcohol and how we're passing those on to our kids. So let's first take a look at some facts about teens and alcohol. Right, we can see from this slide here, now this is taken from the ACJC 2012 Arizona Youth Survey. This is taken on even years throughout students in the Arizona area. These are the results specifically for Maricopa County teens. Okay, we've got about 36% of the 8th graders, more than half, almost 60% of 10th graders, and nearly 70% of seniors have used alcohol. Now, this is more than a few sips, okay? We're talking about drinking here. This is not having a taste of dad's beer or, having a little sip of champagne at a wedding. This is drinking. And just an FYI, average age of first drug use in Arizona starts as young as 13 years old. All right, underage drinking today carries risks that didn't exist years ago, all right? The way many kids drink by combining alcohol and then adding prescription drugs to it or binge drinking puts them at great risk for many dangers, including violence and sexual assaults. In addition, the dumb and dangerous things that kids do when they're drinking can now be captured forever to social media. And 15% of teen drinkers say, drinking is a habit, I can't stop. Okay, I'm going to repeat that one. 15% of teen drinkers say that drinking is a habit and I can't stop. So these are teens that basically are alcoholics. okay, and are going to need some support and treatment for that. They're saying this is a habit. So let's take a look at another reason why alcohol is so dangerous and harmful to teens. Right, the teen brain. Right, the teen brain does not finish its development until about 25 years old. So up to that point, their brains are very susceptible and very vulnerable to substances like alcohol and other drugs. Now, the last part of the brain to develop is kind of what they call the executive center, and that's where sound decision-making takes place, judgment, empathy, evaluating consequences and risks, regulating their emotions, becoming self-aware, morality issues, and impulse control. So we, as parents, we have to think about if our child's brain, our young adult's brain, is not fully developed until about 25 years old, we kind of need to help them along until they have that fully functioning brain. We look at that as helping to act as our kids' filter during this time. Just think about the culture and all of the influence it has on our kids through video games, music, the internet, TV, etc. You know, we really encourage parents to develop a game plan for their kids so that they can really reduce some of these risks. So the teen brain is different than the adult brain, and adding substances like alcohol has a different effect on teens than it does on an adult brain. If you think of that young brain as a sponge, just for an example or an illustration, that sponge is just going to soak up whatever that substance it's exposed to. But an older brain, you know, if you take an older sponge that you've had for a while, hopefully we don't have sponges that have been around for 40 or 50 years, but it's not going to be as absorbent. It's kind of, you know, it's less porous, and it just doesn't absorb the same way. All right, so when we're talking about the teen brain and drinking or drug use, we have to look at one of the first things that teens think about, and that's the relationship between the perception of risk, you know, how dangerous kids think drinking or drugs or an activity might be, versus the perception of social acceptability. Okay, how will other people perceive this act that I'm going to do? How is this going to affect my parents? How would this decision be viewed by my friends? So they think about that. When the perception of risk and social disapproval is high, use tends to be lower. It tends to fall. But when a teen doesn't see the risks or senses that no one cares if they do something, or if they sense that their parents think it's kind of no big deal, then we have use going up. They view risk as being lower. They view disapproval as being lower, so that drives use up. So it's important for parents to know and understand that the #1 reason kids give for not using drugs or drinking is they don't want to disappoint their parents. So parents, this is a huge opportunity for you to make sure your kids know how disappointed, how devastated you would be if they made a decision like that. Okay? You have to have a very specific discussion and conversation with your kids to make sure they know exactly how you feel. This isn't the time to leave anything to assumption. Okay? Now let's take a look at alcohol and the holidays. You know, sure, it's the season to be jolly. The holidays are filled with lots of fun activities. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, and we may be tempted to kind of let up on some of the rules with our kids just so that we can get more things done. Holiday traditions can be a great time for family bonding, and research shows us that kids that are well bonded to their parents are far less likely to use drugs and alcohol than those kids that are not strongly bonded. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're going to carve out some family time with your kiddos, you know, amongst the family gatherings, the shopping, the parties, other events, college kids coming home from school. We'll go into that in a bit more detail in a minute. And then school-age kids home on holiday break. How is that time going to be spent? All right, continuing with enjoying the jolly, we want to avoid the folly. One thing that we can do is anticipate issues and problems that might come up and then prepare for them and plan solutions in advance. For example, a big one is family members that drink too much. You know, if every Thanksgiving when Uncle Roy comes over, if he ends up getting into a big fight with Aunt Sue because they have political differences and he's been drinking too much, you know, that's something you kind of want to plan and prepare for and see if you can find a way to get around that. In addition, we want to think about our attitudes about smoking and pot smoking. Okay, not only our attitudes, but the family members that will be joining us as well. And again, we want to make sure that we have kind of a game plan in place and we know how we're going to handle these things in advance. One of the things that we can do is have a prevention talk with our kids. It's a great way to set expectations for the behavior that you want. Determine what you want in advance. Review your expectations with your family and ask what problems or difficulties they think they might encounter, and then develop a plan together and stick to it. Now, holiday stressors. Wow, there's just so much to do during the holidays. So before we have a list of what needs to be done, I want to focus on the moms for a minute, because in reality, it's up to us. It's up to the moms to create the holiday experience for our family. Now, of course, dads help. You know, they usually carve the turkey at Thanksgiving, and then if you're going to have a tree, they usually put the tree in the stand, and then they string up lights outside. So, you know, we can see how, you know, they can get worn out with the holidays. But now let's just take a look at some of the stuff that mom does, the decorating, the baking, the shopping, the family gatherings, too many events, special foods, and preparing for company. So there's a big list here that can sometimes cause stress. So we need to think about that ahead of time and kind of put a plan in place of how we're going to manage all of these things. Because in addition to this, for those that work outside the home, they still have a job that they're going to. And these things are just added responsibilities. We're not really letting go of any responsibilities during this time. So it can be a stressful time. Now, the reason that we bring that up is because it's easy to become distracted. It's easy to become distracted with our parenting and to not fully pay attention to what our kids are asking us to do, and maybe not get as much details about certain activities as we would at other times. And also, it's easy to become distracted when we're driving, kids checking in. There's that temptation to take a look at the phone while we're driving and respond to text messages. And we want to make sure that we're not going to be doing that during the holiday season, and that we really emphasize with our kids that they're not supposed to do that, that that's a very dangerous thing. So, kids on school break. Now, what are the rules going to be during school break? That's something you probably want to think of before they're on break. How are they going to be spending their time? When we have college kids that might be coming home for the first time since they've been away, what are the rules now? You know, they may have the expectation, since they've been on their own, that they don't have any rules anymore and that they can come and go as they please, which may or may not fit with your expectations. Now, your kids are going to be home probably for several weeks. So think about your expectations as far as them hanging out with friends. What about overnight guests, curfew, checking in? They getting a job, helping out at home? Is there an expectation they'll be using the family car? And what goes along with that? So there's just some additional things to think about. And again, if you can plan these things in advance, you have a much better chance of your holidays just going very smoothly and just having it be a beautiful, wonderful time for your family to just bond and enjoy themselves. So when you're thinking about your holiday and family dinners, there's the question, are we going to serve alcohol or not? You know, some families decide, you know what, now that my kids are teenagers, we're just not going to have alcohol anymore. And the family just makes that choice. if you are going to be doing something different this year than what you've done in the past, as a courtesy, clue in your other family members so that there isn't the expectation by somebody who shows up and is expecting alcohol and there isn't any, and perhaps they can make kind of an issue about that. The other thing we want to make sure is that we don't involve underage kids in anything alcohol related. If you're having a party, it's not a good idea to have your kids learn to be a bartender or learn how to make margaritas or how to open champagne bottles or uncork wine or refill glasses. It's just not a good idea. We really want to separate kids and alcohol. Then you also want to keep track of your alcohol inventory. A lot of times during the holidays, people kind of stock up on some extra special things that they wouldn't normally have during the rest of the year. And you'll just want to make sure that you're keeping kind of a close eye on what's what and what you have in your home, and be alerted if something seems like it's missing. The other thing that you can do is during family events where there is alcohol served, don't use red plastic cups or plastic cups that you can't see through. That provides kids with just a really easy opportunity to, spike their own drink when no one's looking. So use clear plastic cups so that you can see what's inside. With parties, if your child is being invited to a holiday party, by all means, know who the host of that party is going to be and confirm that parents are going to be home, that it's going to be a supervised party, and that there will not be any alcohol for kids under 21. For you yourself, don't serve alcohol to anyone under 21. It's against the law. And if it's somebody else's child, you don't have the right to make that decision for another parent about their child drinking. We want to be especially aware of the dangers of drinking and driving during this holiday season. I mean, not only is it just a very dangerous thing to do from a safety standpoint, but law enforcement will be out, just in droves trying to keep us safe, and they will be arresting people that are drinking and driving and are under the influence. So we have some tips here from the Drug-Free Action Alliance, who's based in Ohio, and they've developed a program to help parents called Parents Who Host Lose the Most. Don't be party to teenage drinking. Too many parents feel alone when they tell us that their kids when they tell their kids that alcohol use is unacceptable. Some parents think that they're creating a safe place for their kids when they allow them to use alcohol at home. Research has shown us that this point of view is mistaken. And really, simply put, kids see a green light for alcohol use at certain times as a green light to use alcohol at any time. And again, can't stress enough, serving alcohol to minors is illegal. As a parent, you can be put on the spot when you host a party. If your kids and their guests can have fun, but you have to make it clear that the rules in your house, there are no alcohol, no drugs, and no tobacco. You, as the parent, have to make that very clear. As the host, you are responsible. Now, if you're away from your home or out of town, you don't want your house to become the party house. Let your kids know that your rules still apply when you're not home, and set up a system to monitor their behavior. Continuing on, as parents, there's a lot of things that you can do to help your kids get through this vulnerable time until they're in their mid-20s. Okay, you want to be clear in your messaging, be very consistent, and enforce consequences if your teens drink. Sometimes, as parents, we can be a little bit ambivalent about drinking, and we can send the message to our kids that, drinking really isn't that bad. First and foremost, it's illegal to serve anyone who is underage alcohol. Okay, you could be prosecuted for serving minors. We have a social host liability law here in Arizona, and if you serve alcohol to minors or persons who are then obviously intoxicated, you can be held liable as the person who provided the alcohol. Okay, and if that person gets into an accident, that is going to create all sorts of additional issues for you. As a parent, you can set up and enforce rules that will help your kids make good and safe and healthy decisions. And providing that type of support for your kids helps reduce the drinking in high school and college. Students whose parents never allow them to drink are significantly less likely to drink heavily in college. Okay, the predominance of research suggests to us that kids who aren't allowed to drink at home and have higher levels of parental supervision are much less likely to drink outside the home in high school and in college. Being clear matters. Okay, look at the results from this statement. Kids who made this statement, my parents would be okay if I drank a beer once in a while. Kids that agree with that statement are 29% more likely to try other drugs, 40% more likely to have used ecstasy in the past 12 months, 32% more likely to be a current marijuana user, and nearly 70% more likely to try methamphetamine. Now, that's scary. Make sure your kids know what your concerns are and what your expectations truly are. Prevention talks. Okay, ahead of time, know what your concerns are. Think through the issues and the problems that might come up, and then have a game plan. Get together with your co-parent, your spouse, your partner, and make sure that the two of you are on the same page first, and you have a good handle on your own attitudes about drinking and, of course, drugs and pot and smoking as well. So once you have that done, you can jot some notes about that. You can gather the kids together, and it's a simple conversation. You can start it out just to make sure we're all on the same page about drinking. Okay, we're going to get together, and here we have a list of what our family policy is about drinking. So you can outline what your rules are going to be, and then you want to include the kids in the discussion. Ask them, when you look at this list that we have here, what kind of problems might come up that you would have to deal with? What would cause a problem for you in complying with this? Get them to talk about that. Ask questions. Well, how would you handle that? Okay, that's a good way to handle that. What if this happened? How would you handle that? In other words, you want to encourage your kids to be a part of this discussion. Now, once you've gone through that part of it and you have agreements from everybody, you still want to stay very encouraging, and this is a very positive thing. This is not designed to be a negative talk, okay? You want to sum it up. Then we all agreed that, no one in this house under 21 will consume any alcohol, nor will anyone from this family, from this house, that is under 21, consume alcohol outside that family. So if you find yourself at a place where they are serving alcohol and you know that you shouldn't be there, then you will call me and I will come and get you, okay? You want to ask your kids, okay, what are some solutions for that? Help develop a rescue plan with them. Be encouraging when you're talking to them. Say things like, that's a good idea. I like that, okay? I want to make sure you're going to have a good time and that you stay safe and healthy. Again, be clear and very specific about what you want. This is how to put together a family policy and clear expectations. Now, the family policy and the prevention talk format are both downloadable documents, PDF files, that you can get on our website at DrugFreeAZKids.org. You can download it, fill it in yourself. It'll walk through the whole process. Now, for this one, for a family policy, this is great because this is something that you can kind of post on the front of your refrigerator so that your kids and their friends can see it as well. It gives your child another tool in their toolbox to be able to say no to their friends. No, I can't go to that party and drink with you because my family has a policy about it and I already know what the consequences would be and it's not worth it to me. So for the purposes of going through this family policy, I'm going to use smoking as an example to show you how specific we have to be. Because if our rule with our kids, if our family policy is no smoking, and they go out and they use chewing tobacco, or if they go to a hookah lounge or they're smoking an e-cigarette, have they violated your rules? Well, not if you said no, no smoking a cigarette. Okay, so we have to be more specific than that. So there will be no nicotine use or possessions. This means no cigarettes, no cigars, no chewing tobacco, no use of e-cigarettes, no vapor pens, no hookah pens, no hookah pipes, no going to vapor lounges, no going to hookah lounges. Then you want to state why you think that's harmful to kids, why you don't want that. Then you want to have consequences, both consequences for meeting the expected behavior, which would be some sort of reward type of thing, and that can be as simple as if you go all the way through your school years without smoking, then we will have a graduation party for you. If not met and they did violate it, then you would have a consequence set up that might be something like, there would be no going out to parties for the next 3 weekends and perhaps having to visit a cancer ward at a hospital. Whatever would suit your family to be most meaningful. Now, one of the great things that comes along with setting a family policy and having this in place and reviewing the consequences ahead of time is, number one, you get your kids to buy into the consequences by having them help you determine what they're going to be. Then, if there is some sort of violation of that, you don't have to address it at the moment when you're angry or when they're angry or when they're under the influence. You can say, you violated the family policy, we will discuss this tomorrow. So that brings up another point. When your kids are going out, no matter if it's during the holiday season or other times, you want to make sure you are up and awake when they get home. Just being in your room and being awake and having them stick their head in and saying, good night. Now, you want to be downstairs by the front door. When they come in, give them a big hug. And when you hug them, give them a big, sniff. And do you smell alcohol or cigarettes or marijuana? Then you want to step back and look in their eyes. Are their eyes dilated? Are they red? Are they glassy? Are they little pinprick pupils? Then you want to ask them a couple questions, and not just yes or no, but, oh, I know that you went to such and such a party and there was food there. Tell me, what did you have to eat? Okay, so now they have to be a little bit more specific, and you can listen. Are they slurring their words? And then when you say good night, if all's well, you want to watch them walk away and make sure that their gait is very straight and steady and they're not kind of swaying, because there are some real significant dangers here. If you did not smell anything on your kids, but yet they are acting intoxicated, that could be an indication that they have perhaps used a prescription drug. And that would be something that you would not want them to go to sleep, because with some of these drugs, the way that they affect the body, and when they're taken and they're not taken in the right dosage or for the right reasons, your child could go to sleep and not wake up in the morning. So that's very important to address those safety type issues. But as far as consequences, that's something that you would not need to handle right there at night. And I know we're getting close to the end here. So you want to teach self-regulation to your kids. Develop a rescue plan with them. Rehearse with them what they're going to say. Something as simple as, hey, you're heading out to a party tonight. There's probably going to be beer there. You know that we don't approve of any underage drinking. Let's just rehearse how you're going to say no. And it can be something as simple as, no thanks, I don't want a beer. Do you have a soda? Okay, it can be simple. Remind your kids, don't just act on impulse. Pause and think through the options and then act. So we really want you to have a very great holiday season, happy and healthy. You probably can't do everything. Decide what you really want to do the most. Make sure you don't drink and drive, nor text and drive. We've got some upcoming events in January 2014. We've got some new parent workshops valley-wide. Check our website for dates and specific locations or call our office. We've got an event on 11/7, a social media webinar. That's going to be connecting and protecting your children with social media. Then on the 14th and the 16th, we're going to have two different times. One is lunchtime, one is the evening, of our standard AZ Parents Connect, drugs, alcohol, and your kids. And this will give you an overview on the current trends in substance abuse, how to spot it, and what you can do. We also invite you to connect with us via Facebook, YouTube, other social media things. We have a little short survey, just a couple of questions at the end that if you could fill out for us, that would be very helpful. We like to make sure we tailor our programs to meet your needs. And we have to thank the Governor's Office for Children, Youth, and Families and the Arizona Parents Commission on Drug Education and Prevention for allowing us to do webinars like this and to support us in our programs. So again, just enjoy your holiday season. DrugFreeAZ.org wishes you and yours a very happy holiday season. Thank you very much. This concludes the webinar. If you have any questions, please email them to kim.obert@drugfreeaz.org, or you may call. That number is 602-264-5700, extension 14.